Alright, this is video 2 of the Congruent Triangles series. We had started off with the side theorem, and we had talked about included angles, and here's why we need to know about included angles. There is a theorem, another theorem we can use to prove triangles congruent, and it is the side angle side theorem, and we abbreviate it with SAS, so we don't have to write it out so many times. If two sides and the included angle, this is why we needed the included angle. The angle has to be made up of the two sides. The angle that we're talking about has to be the one that's made up by its two sides. For instance, if I had a side angle side one, let's say that let me mark C and T. Okay, they're congruent. It would have to be that it was this side is congruent to this side and this side congruent to this side if we wanted to use those two angles, because C is the included angle of BC and AC, and T is the included angle of ST and RT. So we could say that triangle, I'm going to say ACB just to emphasize that angle C is the one we're talking about, and triangle RTS are congruent by side angle side. So let's look at some examples here. Are these two congruent? Well, we see we've got one mark here and one mark here, right? And you see there's two marks there. Now, if I want to use side angle side for this, I need the angle between the two sides to be congruent. That would be angle Z on the top one and Z on the bottom one, wouldn't it? Well, these are congruent because they are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. If I were to write a proof that this is congruent by side angle side, I could say XZ is congruent to VZ, YZ is congruent to WZ, and angle XZY is congruent to angle VZW. So I can mark these congruent, and since that is the included angle, these are congruent by side angle side. And then let's look at the last example here. You have two triangles. They share a common side. Anytime you see a common side being shared, you know that probably that's going to have something to do with it. So let's go ahead and mark it. I'm going to put 2 marks on it since there's not anything with 2 marks. So if I were doing a proof to show this is congruent by side angle side, I could say, well, AC is congruent to DB. If only you could read it, right? Okay. Then you would say that BC is congruent to BC. The first one was given to you, but this BC congruent to BC, that's the reflexive property, isn't it? Now let's talk about the angle. Angle ABC is congruent to angle DBC. Now the reason I would want to do maybe that one last is I would want to show that the two sides, I would want to show the two sides and then show the angle, and then I could say that the two triangles are congruent, and that may be my last step of my proof. And I could say the reason would be if two sides and an included angle are congruent to each other in two triangles, then by side angle side, that would be my reason, side angle side, they are congruent. Okay, we're on the last page of that first set of notes. It says, now there are 3 things you can mark just by looking at pictures. And we've already done that in some of the problems we've worked. One of them is a shared side. A side that's in both triangles, mark it as congruent. So that side right here, this is not going to turn out well because this is so little. I'm just going to highlight the side. That side right there, I can mark it with 3 marks to show that it's congruent. If you have vertical angles, go ahead and mark those congruent. Of course, that's not going to work, but these 2 angles right there, where they're across from each other, those are, when you see that and you start a problem, you should always mark these things just so that it'll be right in front of your face and you can then see the pattern in the triangles. And when there are parallel lines, you can mark alternate interior angles congruent. Okay, I'm not quite sure at this point. I'm making these during the summer. I'm not sure if we've covered parallel lines or not by now. But if I have these two lines parallel to each other, and I know they are because they put those two little arrow marks or sideways triangles on there just so we could see. There's two parallel lines. Here's a transversal. So that angle and that angle will be congruent. Anytime you see this going on, you should go ahead and mark those angles congruent, just so then you look at the other information given in the problem and you'll be able to tell why something's congruent. So these three things, when you get a problem, if you see that these are in the problem, mark them first, so that will help guide your thinking. All right, let's look at these examples down here. The following, determine if the given triangles are congruent by one of the congruence postulates or patterns. If so, write a congruent statement. Okay. I'm going to come over here to the side and do it just because I know that's not going to work well with this pen on this iPad. Okay, so I see that that I have right angles in both of them, so those angles are congruent, aren't they? Then I see that I have two sides here marked congruent, and then two sides here marked congruent. So if you look, if we go in order, we could say that is side, angle, side. You should start at one end of the information where all the information's clustered, pick an end to start on it, and then go. So I would be going this side, and then this angle, and this side. I could have gone the other direction and started at the side. The last one I did, I could have made that my first one. It still would have been side, angle, side. So my congruent statement would be triangle FDG it's a D, goodness, is congruent to triangle JHK. Got to match up everything, right? JHK. And it would be, the reason is what they want in that lower blank. That would be side, angle, side. Okay? Now I'm going to erase this so I can, do another one. So pause the video if you need to write something down. Okay, so let's look at example B. I noticed that they have this side congruent to that side. And they've got these two sides. So I'm just going to mark over the red marks. Now, these are not congruent. Here's why. If I start on, let's say I'm going from B to A to C, that would be side, angle, side, right? Okay. Well, and then I come over here, it's side, side, angle, right? Okay. Well, that's not going to work. That's not a congruence formula. Now, maybe we can do something else, though. Let me erase some of this and see if we can figure out something else, because there is a vertical angle there. That may help. Okay? This angle here is congruent to this angle here. Now, this is the first set of notes. I'm not quite sure why they put this one in here. Because, let's see. This would be congruent for another reason. It won't work with any of the side, 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 or side, angle, side. But it would be congruent because I should put two marks here, shouldn't I? Okay. I would have, if these two are congruent and these two are congruent, then this one here, and let me put a 3 on it, and this one here, I'm just going to put a 3, pretend I'm marking it with 3 little, arcs, but you're not going to be able to read it. That would be angle, angle, angle. So all the angles are congruent. Now the problem is I'm not sure still if it's going to be congruent because I got to still find sides that match up. So let me erase everything off there. Let's see. Well, let's look here. We've got angle, side, angle. And we have, no, you know what? This one's not congruent. They didn't give us the third side. And so we don't know that the proper sides are matching up congruent. So we can't really say that these triangles are congruent. Well, let's see now. There may be one way to work it out. Let's look at this really thoroughly. If that and that are congruent, let me go ahead and make some colored dots. Maybe that will help. And this are congruent. I could do it here. There's a theorem that says angle and then an included side and an angle And if I look over here, it would be the same angle, side angle. So we don't know this yet. You're going to get it in the next couple of videos that are on this section, but this one is congruent by angle, side angle. And I'd have to be careful how I wrote this statement. I'd have to say, let's say I go from A to B to C on the first one. It would be congruent to, let's see, E would match up with A, B matches up with D, and then C matches up with C. So it actually is congruent, though you might have thought the answer was no, just because you had to kind of work on this one a little ways to find it to be congruent. But at least adding in all these angles are congruent to each other, the blue ones and the green ones that I put dots on, does help me kind of find, you know, a little bit more information so that I could say they're congruent. So let's look at this last one down here. C. I'll do it in black just so it sticks out. Now I have, this one's going to work, isn't it? Because you've got this side and that side congruent. You've got this side and this side congruent. And then I'm going to put a red dot. There's a shared side. So there's 3 sides equal to 3 sides. So this one's going to be side, side, side. And I could say try, and you know, if I really wanted to make sure I was matching stuff up, do you remember that if this is a parallelogram, and it is, parallel sides cut by a transversal would be like that. I'm going to erase that now so we can talk about the fact that there's some angles congruent here if I get confused about how to match it up. This angle here would be congruent to this angle here. So let's say I start at R. I go from R, triangle R, to S. I'm going over the side marked with 2 lines. So I'm going to say, okay, if I know that R and T match up, let me put T over here. And then if I go from T over the side that has 2 marks, that would take me to U. So it would be RST is congruent to TUR. Notice that the T's don't line up as congruent to each other. There's 2 different angle T's and they're not congruent to each other. So you have to be really careful with these similarity statements.